I want to introduce our speaker. So we are joined live by Rachael Bell-Irving. So she is at Oceanwise, or the Vancouver Aquarium in Vancouver, in beautiful Stanley Park. She's joined us for over 40 hangouts. I think this is the first of the year with us, maybe the second, maybe Joe's done one, but we're always thrilled to have you back. And she's going to tell us a little bit today again about ocean plastics. So we'll dive in with her. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachael, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jesse. It's great to be back. Happy September 2019, everybody. Oh my gosh. Sorry, my coffee's kicking in. So this is a really fun morning to come and chat about ocean plastics. It's a really important issue. It's one of many issues that are facing the ocean right now, but something that every single person has a hand in. And there's lots of different ways that we can tackle the problem. And the best way to start by doing that is simply understanding that it is a problem and where it comes from and how it is caused. So we're gonna dive into just talking about very briefly what plastic is, why we're concerned about it, some of the sources that it comes from, some research that Oceanwise is doing, and then we'll leave lots of time for questions and whatnot. A couple of things, as Jesse said, I work for Oceanwise. We're an international ocean conservation organization dedicated to seeing a future of healthy and flourishing oceans. Our home base is located at the Vancouver Aquarium in Stanley Park on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations peoples. And I'm in the aquarium right now. We are still closed to the public, so you are currently the only people in the building, which is very exciting. However, if you do hear some background noises, that is because we still have staff taking care of all the animals that we have, like some of the ones behind me. I've got Skuna, the sea turtle, swimming over my head at the moment. So she's quite a charismatic one to have around. And there's lots of exciting things to see if you get the chance to come visit us. And we are a nonprofit, so everything that we do is dedicated directly back to caring for our animals or the animals in the wild. So that being said, one of the many things we do is research, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. Before we get started, I'd like to see a wave from the students if you have heard about plastic pollution before. All right, pretty much everybody's hand is waving. Excellent. So this is a very current topic for us to talk about, and it's also an important one because it is human caused, which means if we're the cause of the problem, we are also a powerful solution on that front as well. Now, I think it's incredibly important to recognize that plastic is very useful. It was invented for a reason. When it was invented, it actually helped to preserve our food, which allowed humans to have a safer supply and actually helped us to live longer at the end of the day. Plastic can be used for so many things because it can be transformed into lots of different shapes, sizes, and textures. We have lots of different types of plastics as well, and that's part of what the problem is. But what I'd like you to do is point to something made of plastic in your classroom. Oh, I got someone holding up a plastic bag too. Excellent. So when we're looking around our environment, we can generally find two different types of plastics. We can find what I like to call useful plastics, which are things that we probably use multiple times a day over and over and over again. So for example, if you are sitting on a chair, there's a very good chance that chair is made out of plastic. Or if you're sitting on a carpet, or even some of our flooring, there's a good chance that that might be made out of plastic as well. Now, this is really useful. It means that we get lots of use out of it, and it helps us improve our lives. The other type of plastic are what we call single-use plastic items. So we use them once, and then we throw them away. And that's not nearly as useful. Now, before I dive into some more plastics, I'd like to know some of your previous knowledge of what you've heard or what you've learned. So Jesse, if you don't mind helping me out, I'd like to go to each classroom and get one threat from plastic. So why is plastic a problem? Let's get some examples from the students.
Okay, well, Miss Stevens' class, everyone's got their hand up, so we'll start with them. What do you guys think? A threat from plastics?
Noah. Lots of animals are dying from it, and it's gonna ruin the food chain and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So animals can die from it. It can ruin the food chain. Interesting.
Great answer. All right, Miss Brochu's class. What do you guys think? You guys are so polite. Usually people are screaming in these moments.
Really loud so you can hear it. Well, pollution, so water and stuff.
No, that's good, guys. We've got pollution in the water. Okay.
Yes, that's really important. We're going to touch on that in a second.
All right, Miss Frawley's class. Any thoughts? issues about plastic? Miss Frawley's class. Sorry, wrong class. There we go. Yeah, there you go. You're good.
Okay. Because animals can get their heads stuck inside.
Stuck in it? Yeah.
Hey, yeah, entanglement is a big one.
Yeah. And then last but not least, Miss Walchuk's class. So I'll actually demute this time. There we go. What do you guys think?
Louder. Okay, hold on. We're just gonna get a little.
Take your time. All good, guys.
Plastics can like pollute the ocean, and they can like say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what we're looking at is plastics in the ocean specifically. So these are all really good things to know. And what I'm going to encourage you to try and deepen your knowledge on is the how. So it's easy enough for us to say plastics is bad. But when we become smart change makers, we're able to say why and we're able to say how. So for example, talking about polluting the waters is a really good one because that affects humans as much as it affects the animals. And someone else mentioned food chain and entanglement. Those are really good examples of how plastic specifically impacts the environment. And the reason why it's a concern is because when we look at the globe, the ocean is one massive ocean. We've described it in a couple different sections, but really it is all interconnected. So any plastic that gets into the waterways, whether that's through a storm drain in your city, a river, a lake, streams, or the ocean itself, or even on a field that's swept up by weather, it's able to get into the giant circulation system of the planet, which is the ocean. And that's why we're majorly concerned, because we start to see plastics, especially single-use plastic items, arriving on coastlines across the globe. For example, we did a shoreline cleanup up in Haida Gwaii, which is in northern British Columbia, about 2 years ago. And we found brands that were from Iceland, that were German, that were Japanese, that were Swedish, that were Russian. I think I also found Portuguese deodorant. That was really interesting. So you can get garbage and waste from all around the world collecting on our shorelines. And this is why it's a global problem. And there isn't just one person to blame, because as soon as it's in the water, we're all contributing to that. And the most important thing, again, that we look at is what happens to plastic when it gets in the water. So imagine you're in the water, you're swimming through the ocean, it is salty, you can taste it on your tongue, and the waves are crashing around, there's sunlight beating down on you. When we get those sort of conditions, plastic starts to change. And it'll never go away because it was man-made with chemicals. It's not able to go back into the environment. Instead, it just breaks up into little tiny pieces that we call microplastic. So take a look at your pinky nail, and you'll see there's that little top line of your pinky nail. That's about how big microplastic is, or even smaller. So imagine the size of a grain of rice, or tinier. Now here at OceanWise, we are looking at different types of those microplastics. They come in lots of different forms. Primary means it was made to be tiny. So microbeads used to be found in things like our toothpaste or face washes. They're now banned in Canada, which is great. However, there might still be some on the shelves or coming in from other countries. So that's a start. We have found one solution so far, which is awesome. We can keep rolling with that. And nurdles are the building blocks of plastic. So kind of neat to think about, how is plastic made? Well, people will make tiny pieces of nurdles, which is just little building blocks of plastic. They'll ship them around the world to then be built into other pieces of plastic, like water bottles or plastic bags or things like that. Now, secondary microplastics are the plastics that started off big and became small through either water breakdown or chemical breakdown or things like that. So fragments are those little pieces we find on the beach. Synthetic fibers are ones that we focus on a lot here at OceanWise. So what I'd like all of you to do, synthetic fibers are kind of a new topic as of late, and that's because we all use them, and it's in our clothing. So there's a good chance that your clothing might be made out of plastic. So we're gonna pause for a second. I'm gonna give you a minute. I'd like you to look at the tag of your jacket, of your shirt, maybe help your friend, and see what the ingredients are of your clothing. I know mine is polyester and spandex, I believe. Let me check.
I think we should incorporate the same exercise into like an ape-based Explore My Secret Pants hangout later, like picking ticks off. This is brilliant.
Oh, great. It is a fun one. Like, it's kind of surprising sometimes to be like, oh yeah, like, especially when you look at like rain jackets, those get weird.
By the way, I love the class participation. We've never had this question interspersed into a hangout before, so this is awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
Oh, I love this one. Well, what we'll do is maybe in another 30 seconds or so, we can actually go to class and we'll see what ingredients they found. I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of cotton.
All right.
All right, I see some stillness.
Stillness? Okay, well, if there's stillness, we'll go to the class. So Miss Brochu's class, what did you guys find?
What did you find, Julia? Nice and loud.
My zipper.
Zipper on the sweater's plastic.
Ah, that's a good observation.
Okay. And then Miss Stevens' class. Yeah, you guys are good. You can yell it out. You can say, what did you find? A bunch of stuff? Yes, I know. We're on YouTube. It's very exciting. Okay. Miss Frawley's class, did you guys find anything?
Found rayon, polyester, spandex,
And
cotton.
Cotton?
All right, solid.
Excellent. All right. And then Miss Walchuk's group.
Cotton. I made in China.
Hey, yeah. Awesome. By the way, I like that you guys are in the light now. It's exciting. Okay.
It was great. You listed off a lot of the common ones. So cotton is natural fiber, and we can always talk about cotton in another program, but talking about plastic specifically, polyester, the rayon, nylon, spandex, acrylic, those are all synthetic fibers. So humans have been intelligent enough and creative enough to actually invent plastic fibers to make clothing out of. That's pretty awesome because it protects us from the weather, it keeps us safe. The problem that we're facing right now is that when we wash our clothes, those microfibers go down the drain and can end up in the water systems. So this is what some of the research OceanWise is doing right now, is trying to see if we can find microfibers in the food web. So I'm actually going to show my slides again because we can practice a little bit in terms of what it means to look at plastic pollution from a research standpoint. So this is a picture of kind of how we can get plastics into the ecosystem. And as somebody mentioned again, the food web is the big concern because microfibers or microplastics in general are the perfect size to be eaten by small creatures. So corals, for example, that you might find in a tropical habitat behind me, or things like krill or shrimp, or anything that's at the bottom of the food chain, which again is eaten by the little fish, which is then eaten by the bigger fish, which is then eaten by top predators like orca whales, like seals, and humans as well. So there is that really deep connection with the ocean that we need in order to survive through things like food that we are inevitably actually polluting as well. So this is why it's valuable for humans to look at this kind of problems and to actually invest in the environment so that we're keeping ourselves safe as well. So this is an example of how we might go about trying to actually find those synthetic fibers in an experiment. So this experiment was looking at mussels in British Columbia. And basically it started with a dissection, so taking apart the mussel and basically dissolving it or digesting it through chemicals. So as if it were in your stomach, you've got acid in your stomach that breaks down your food. Julie in the photo does that in a petri dish. And so she dissolves the mussels, runs them through a filter, and then anything that's left on the filter is going to be under a microscope to see if there are any synthetic fibers or not. And of the microplastics she found, about 91% of those plastics were synthetic fibers. This was only a 2-year test, so we would have to do a lot more research before we can say definitively that plastic is in mussels, but it is a starting point and a little bit of a concerning one. Another project that's currently going on is looking at the Arctic food web. And so this one, you're gonna see some beluga stomachs. This is Rhiannon, and she has the privilege of going up to the Inuit community of Tuktoyaktuk once a year. And when they do their beluga hunt, they have in the past donated the stomachs of the beluga to the research so that we can start dissecting them and doing that same process, looking at what is in the stomach, looking at what is in the feces, and trying to see if there are plastics as well. So same process, dissection, dissolving, and then filtering to see what is left. And what's really cool about the beluga is that you can see the entire food web in its stomach. Here on the photo, we've got a little tiny bug in that sort of left-hand corner of the big tray. We've got some little fish. We've got a big fish. All of these things are found inside of the beluga stomach and gives us a really good look at that whole food web to see if it has plastics in it or not. I have not heard the results of that study yet, so I can't give you an answer, but all of this is ongoing. And when you're actually looking at it under a microscope, it can be hard to tell whether or not it's plastics. So this is a microscopic slide, and we're gonna take a little bit of a vote. It can either be microfibers, like synthetic fibers, or it might be algae, because sometimes we'll find lots of organic things on these slides as well. So if you think that it is a synthetic fiber, put up your hand. All right, okay, we got a few people. All right, hands down. If you think that it is algae, put up your hand. All right, it's pretty evenly divided. Well, let's take a look. If I can get a bit of a drum roll. Boom. Ah, that was a synthetic fiber. That was from a rain jacket. So that's just one example, but let's try again. We'll give it another shot. All right, here we go. We've got another sample here. Let's see, hands up if you think this is a synthetic fiber. Oh, almost nobody. Okay, interesting. Put your hand up if you think this is a seaweed. Oh, wow, most people, interesting. All right, I'm curious as to what your observations are. Well, let's take a look. Drum roll, please. And boom. Ah, well done, everybody. That was indeed a seaweed. Nicely done. All right, I've got two more, and then we'll get into some questions. So here's another one. Hands up if you think it is fiber. All right, we're a bit more split this time. Interesting. All right, hands up if you think it is a seaweed. Okay, yeah, we see some people are not really sure. This is what our researchers are doing pretty much every day, looking under a microscope, trying to guess. Luckily, we've got some equipment that can help us profile what type of plastics they are if we find plastics, but getting to that in the first place is tricky. So last one, drum roll, please. Is it seaweed? Is it fiber? Let's find out. Ah, this is a very common one. This is fleece. So fleece is usually made out of synthetic fiber and is actually one of the most prevalent shedders that we get when it comes to microfibers. So this is just one example of the things that we can do to help tackle the plastic problem, and that's research. So if you're someone who likes to focus, likes to look at those little details, likes to be very detail oriented, then research might be a track for you to explore and help find out the answer to plastic pollution. However, that's just one thing that we can do. There are lots of stuff that we can do in order to reduce the amount of especially single-use plastic that we're using.